Well, hello and welcome to another episode of Gossip Finance, where I am your host, Alacius Inger.
And I'm Duncan Sandlin. How's everybody doing? How are you today, Lacey?
I'm excellent. It's a snowy day here in New York. How is it on the West Coast?
Well, it's not snowing now, but there's a layer of, it gets in Oregon, it's mostly ice. So,
So you've got a sheet of ice and I've got some pretty little snow out the window.
Right. So not ultra safe to go out right now in Oregon. But
so let's hang out here and let's gossip about some money
and stuff. Well, let's start with the news and politics. So on our show today, we're going to cover the Iowa Caucuses, which Trump won pretty handily. But it might not be quite as good news for him as you'd like to think, but it still went really well for him. Vivek Ramaswamy he's left the race. We won't have to see him again anymore this cycle. So he's gone. And then we'll talk a little bit more about the Trump disqualification cases in the Supreme Court. And then our favorite Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, looks like he's about to get ousted as well, or he's in trouble of getting ousted.
Oh, man, they just cannot get themselves together over there. I mean, I don't even like the party, but I want them to get their shit together enough to
pass some laws.
Keep somebody in or do something.
Well, and then speaking of people who can't get their shit together, Lauren Boebert is running. She's switched districts, so she's carpetbagging districts. And already, apparently, the people in the district she's running for now already hate her. And it looks like she's not even going to make it through the primary. So she's in trouble. But we'll also talk to you about changes to the tax code that's coming up and why this election is going to be really important for your pocketbook coming up going forward. And we'll talk a little bit about what the economy is doing. And we'll talk a little bit at the end about some different strategies for what do you do when you start making a little bit more money, and how that can be a negative if you don't plan it right. So that'll be our show for today.
That's true.
But we're going to begin in Iowa, where Trump he took it away, man. But we're going to clip to Morning Joe. Not always my favorite, but they do cover some of this stuff pretty well. So we're going to watch them talk about this a little bit, and we'll jump in.
Tim, let's start with you. I'd love for you to give us your input on what happened in Iowa last night, and what's your takeaway as it pertains to a potential Trump-Biden matchup in the fall.
Well, look, I think a couple of things are really interesting. First, like this enthusiasm number for the Republicans, 14% total turnout of Republican voters in Iowa. I think it's a really startling number. I think if I was the Team Trump, I would be worried about this. He's supposed to be this guy that motivated everyone. The second is like DeSantis's performance was ridiculous. I was talking to a Republican.
He's right. So this is what it ended up being. Trump got 51% of the vote. DeSantis got 21.2. Nikki Haley came in third at 19.1. So Trump is, pretty much we could say now he's probably going to be the Republican candidate. Unlikely that either of these two are going to take him in the primary. I guess there's a slight chance Nikki Haley could take New Hampshire, because New Hampshire tends to be a little bit more moderate Republican, more college educated. So she has a little bit of a better shot there than she did in Iowa. Plus, it's hard to get excited about Iowa because, Mitt Romney won Iowa. I think he lost it and then he won it later on. Iowa doesn't necessarily tell you a whole lot. It still could go a lot of different ways, but it looks like Trump's pretty much clinched it. He's going to be the guy that runs in the actual election. But here was the thing he noted out. It was a 14% turnout for the Iowa caucus, which was 40% smaller than it was in 2020. So even though Trump got 51%, which is high, I think he only got 40-something% last time. 51%, that's really, really good numbers for him, except for the fact that like half the people didn't really show up. And even then, him only getting 51%, you would think he would have more enthusiasm. So what it seems like is a lot of people just decided they didn't want to show up. And what does that say?
Okay.
Especially in Iowa, which is really red.
Well, my question, though, is, are they just people who were like, oh yeah, Trump is going to win it anyway, and didn't bother to show up, and there are people who are just going to be faithfully, voting their party anyway.
Yeah, I could see that maybe, but when you're talking about also, I mean, it was really bad weather, so it could have factored in, but a 40% drop is a pretty significant drop in numbers. I mean, and it's not like these were outdoors or anything. And plus, it's Iowa; it gets cold there all the time. They were showing pictures of people walking around in shorts and t-shirts, and it's like below zero. I mean, you're from the north,
Yeah.
You guys are used to you guys.
I do.
Yeah.
I do.
I'm freezing to death.
Walking through snow drifts.
Yeah, it's like 50 degrees out. I'm freezing to death, and Lacey's like, "It's beach weather. What's going on, man?"
Right, point us to the beach, man.
So, no, I think that might have been part of it, but I also think there's just a lack of enthusiasm about the Republican candidates, just in general. Plus, you have a third of Republicans flat out saying that if Trump gets convicted, they won't vote for him. So even if half that number turns out to be true, he doesn't have nearly enough. So it might be that he's in real trouble here, and he's got to create more enthusiasm if he wants to get anything done, which is going to be tough while he's being shuttled back and forth to court. I mean, that's been working well with his base so far, apparently, but once he starts getting into the dog days where he's got to get the moderates and he's got to get some independents, that's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. We'll watch a little bit more of this, but yeah, kind of an interesting turnout. I would have thought he'd have taken it by like 70%. Honestly, I was shocked at this 51% number.
An operative who reminded me that DeSantis went to all 99 counties, and every time he did, he ended up sliding in those counties. He did worse in the counties as they saw him more. The more they were exposed to him, the worse he did. You and I have talked about this in the past. This is a guy who just isn't ready for prime time. And now, what's the rationale for his candidacy?
Right. He's going to go in a little bit more making fun of this, but I want to point this out. So Ron DeSantis he went to all 99 counties in Iowa. Iowa's ultra red state. I mean, they're gonna go for the Republican no matter what. But he went to all 99 counties, and as he went to all 99 counties, his numbers went down in each county because he's just so impersonable. In fact, in one of the counties, I think it was a prank. The guy came up and he gave Ron DeSantis a participation trophy. And they hadn't even started the caucus yet.
It's bad when you going to talk to people makes it worse. Like, it'd be like if you went to a job interview and they were like, we were more interested in hiring you before you came to this interview. Right. And now that you came to this interview, we're definitely not interested.
Right.
Like, really?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Well, he has almost no personality. I mean, he's just a weird. I mean, they're all weird guys. Trump's a weird guy, but yeah.
Okay, let's be honest, though. I mean, in theory, we don't really want to be voting based on personality.
No, but you also want somebody who can lead, and you have to have some sort of personable skills if you're going to be the leader, right?
Yes, however, we've had some leaders whose personable skills were, let's just say, questionable at best.
Yeah, no kidding. But
we've had some leaders that are like, well, that one's just going to walk us straight into a war, and everyone hates them.
Oh, yeah.
Come on now.
Well, this guy's going to dig in a little bit more because it was bad for DeSantis. This was a horrible turnout for him because he doesn't have a shot in New Hampshire. Nikki Haley has a shot. He doesn't. So this is pretty much this is the nail in the coffin for DeSantis.
Like, what do people now believe? He was supposed to be the Trump alternative. And the truth is, the more people see that alternative, the less they want him. On to the general election.
And Jim, can I really quickly, before you get to the general election, can I say now, and again, Donald Trump could not have paid for a better result last night. If you look at Haley, it's funny, but you are right. A low turnout, not a lot of enthusiasm for Republicans. A third of Republicans saying they loathe Donald Trump in the polls. He doesn't get half of the Republican vote. This is no huge vote of confidence for Donald Trump, but the way DeSantis and Haley chopped each other's support in half, very good for Donald Trump. Now Nikki Haley goes to New Hampshire, probably overperforms there. You've got Ron DeSantis. He's going down to South Carolina. And what is Ron DeSantis going to be doing in South Carolina? He's going to camp out there for a month, and he's going to go and campaign on vets and military issues, which, of course, will gut any support that Nikki Haley may have had with those groups. So we're going to probably see a repeat in South Carolina of these two cutting each other in half and Donald Trump just gliding through.
Yep, and that's the thing that amazes me about all these campaigns is the only Republican that went after Trump was Chris Christie. And he's a scumbag, but you live in New York when he shut down the bridge in New Jersey just to, his payback against the city, right? But no, anyway.
Seriously.
Yeah, no, he's a nutball. Anyway, but that's the thing is, I've never seen this before. We have a primary, and you don't attack your primary opponent. DeSantis and Haley have spent this whole time attacking each other, and Vivek Ramaswamy and Chris Christie and all this money attacking each other, and they've not said one negative thing about Trump. And it's like, really, the guy that's winning it? That's the guy you should be going after. I mean, it's just been a battle for second place. So, yeah, it looks like Trump's pretty much got this clinched, but we're going to watch this. Rachel Maddow has a guy, and they're going to talk a little bit about what they just talked about on Morning Joe, but I thought this guy was kind of interesting on his take.
Well, I think Joy had it right. Almost half of the base of the Republican Party showing up for this caucus tonight voted against Donald Trump. Think about that. I mean, this is the most famous Republican. He's the guy who, basically built the modern Republican Party, the MAGA Republican Party that Democrats are running against. And half the people in that party didn't vote for Donald Trump. So I think that is telling. It tells you the weakness of Donald Trump and also the opportunity for Democrats.
There are three massively troubling results for Donald Trump out of the highly anticipated Iowa caucus tonight. Now, the first is that Trump won Iowa with 50% of the vote. Look, this guy is the presumptive Republican nominee. He's basically running as the Republican incumbent. He literally claims that he never even lost the last election and that he should be president right now. If that's not presenting himself as the incumbent, I don't know what is. He's got 100% name ID. He claims to wholly own the Republican Party. And yet, in ruby red Iowa, a place so white that I would be surprised if a single person could dance in the entire state, Trump could only garner 50% of the vote? Sure, that's 30 points.
Because that's the big point.
Okay, so I totally suddenly can't get Footloose out of my head.
That's what he was...
where he goes a little down and teaches everybody how to dance.
But I was like that. It's one of the whitest, most Republican states. That's why they do the big primary caucus there. The first one, at least. But yeah, so this should have been the base of the Republican Party. And it's not abnormal for them to be split up a little bit, but not when you have a former president running for office. You would think they would be lockstep behind him because the others don't have a chance. Because this is the base. These people pay attention to politics, right? And he still couldn't get half of them, or barely half of them. And even then, that was low turnout, which means a lot of people just didn't bother showing up. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. We'll see how it plays out. I mean, a lot of things could happen. Still a lot of campaign left, but Trump's run into another small problem. I don't know that it's going to tank him too much, but it's funny. And David Packman's going to cover it for us real quick here, because this is just hilarious. You're going to love this.
Donald Trump will not be on the Nevada primary ballot. It's not because of an insurrection. It's not because of a court that decided something. It's because they didn't do the paperwork. It's that simple. And it is this sort of incompetence that I welcome in keeping Donald Trump from being president.
So they didn't
file. Wow, okay, so this totally makes me think of the insanity with his lawyer, too. Like, his lawyer just didn't check a damn box. Like, what kind of incompetent idiots does he got working for him?
Well, this is actually a little bit stupider than that. Let's watch a little bit more of this because David will cover this.
They think it's stupider? I didn't even know that was possible.
Oh, this is stupider than they just forgot something. This is way stupider.
This is the Nevada Independent.
Oh, God.
Trump cannot legally qualify for Nevada's 2024 primary ballot. The Supreme Court may consider if states can disqualify Trump from their primaries. No matter how justices rule, it will not alter the Silver State's election. Here's the key paragraph. His absence has nothing to do with any legal challenges to his eligibility to participate. Nevada Supreme Court was never given the opportunity to rule whether Trump violated Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. This is because Trump's campaign didn't fill out an application to place him on Nevada's primary ballot. As hilarious as it would have been if this was the product of a paperwork snafu committed by an incompetently run campaign, Trump's absence was wholly intentional. They followed the directions provided to them by an incompetently run organization, the Nevada Republican Party, which decided the same primary election process that's been used to elect every other non-presidential Republican candidate, including the governor, is not good enough for presidential candidates. The state party warned presidential campaigns if it saw their candidates' names on the primary ballot, they would be ineligible to participate in and receive delegates from the caucus. Bear in mind, this was made after the caucus was canceled in 2020, and Democrats hosted a caucus that mostly worked.
So this is basically the Nevada GOP blew itself up. No Republican can run for president in Nevada because we have some weird strategy about we don't like the election process.
So, like, we don't like the election process, so we're going to screw ourselves.
Right.
Because now we're thinking, all right, guys, that's who you're voting for to run your entire country. Let's just stop and think about the incompetence there. You don't even have to like the Democratic Party, but come on now. Come on.
At least they're filing their paperwork on time. I mean, if you had to pick between the two employees, who would you pick? The guy who gets the work done on time, or the guy who refuses to do the work?
Well, refusing to do the work in order to prove a point.
I don't know what the point even really is, but even Packard's
I don't know.
He'll cover it a little more, but he's not quite sure what the strategy is here.
As tempting as it might have been, whether Trump was constitutionally eligible, it's not going to make a difference because Trump is not going to be on that ballot. One of the funniest things here about all of this is that we're still going to hear that this is the radical left keeping Trump off the ballot, even though it doesn't have to do with a court. It has to do completely with an incompetent Republican Party in Nevada. The Nevada Republican Party completely upside down on this issue. But they will say, how could Joe Biden do this to him? The weaponized justice.
That's pretty much what the strategy is. We're going to cut off our nose to smite our face, and then we're going to blame our opponent. And say, he did it.
Okay. There we go.
That's their strategy. Oh, man.
Oh, my God. That is just so stupid. So he's got to fight using the Supreme Court to get himself back on certain ballots. And there's one ballot he can't get himself on because his people didn't fill out paperwork.
Yeah, well, Nevada's gone blue the last, since 2008. So I don't think he was going to win it anyway. And it's really only 6 electoral votes. But still, it's like, it's just like... It just shows the incompetence of we just want to stir up some shit so we can later blame somebody else for it and say we're being victimized, even though we're doing it to ourselves. Right?
Victimized by ourselves.
Right. This is the equivalent of pooping your pants and then saying, hey, you pooped my pants. No, I didn't poop your pants. Well, then why is there poop in my pants? That's the whole strategy here.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah. Well,